Hello Magic fans, I'm Beef and welcome back to the first standard gameplay video using some new cards from Foundations. Or, I say new cards, they're actually old cards. But first of all, let's have a quick chat about what Foundations is, because Foundations is a bit weird. In one hand it's a throwback to how Magic used to do things. So, you know, as I'm sure everyone is aware, Magic does sets, and nowadays those sets are kind of self-contained, either on a plane or in an area like Dustmourn, for example. Dustmourn, actually I don't know if Dustmourn is the name of a plane or the actual house itself. I think it's the house. But things like, you know, Lost Caverns of Ixalan takes place on Ixalan, same as the original Ixalan and Eldraine, and Strixhaven and Kaldheim. They are sets that take place on a plane, and there is a self-contained story in there told through the cards or through other stories. What Wizards used to do is they used to do blocks, which would be 3 sets, basically one massive set and 2 smaller sets, which would take place on a plane. But they stopped that in the late 2010s. Not entirely sure why, but now we only get generally 1 set per plane, and we go back to planes later on. But what they used to do, which I think ended in 2021, was a core set every year. And these weren't really related to a story, as far as I know. They were designed to introduce people into Magic. And if you look at old core sets, keywords are generally explained on there. So if something has flying, it will say this creature can only be blocked by other creatures with flying or reach. Whereas in most other sets, it will just say flying, because the idea is everyone knows what flying is. Core sets were a way to teach people how to play Magic, and the cards generally were a bit simpler. And up until 2010, I think, core set 2010, all core sets were all reprints. Then 2010 was the first one which actually had brand new cards. And some of them really powerful. Baneslayer Angel, which is a really, really powerful angel, was first printed in core set 2010. But I think the last core set was in 2021. So we have core sets on Arena. But then they stopped doing it. But Foundations is very much a core set. It's essentially the same thing. A lot of older cards have been reprinted, which is great, and there are new cards in there. What's really, really odd, though, is Foundations is going to be legal in Standard until 2029 at least. That is 5 years. That is insane, in my opinion. I'm not a fan of the extended Standard. They extended it to 3 years a couple of years ago last year instead of the old 2 years. I hate the term content creator, but as someone who does this, it can get old quickly. And now we're just going to be stuck with the same cards for 3 years, not 2 years, but Foundations for 5 years. And there are some really powerful cards in Foundations. You know, there's already a 2-card combo with Kona, Rescue Beastie from Dustmourn, and Omniscience, which is now in Standard, which we'll definitely play on the channel. But, you know, going forward, it's going to be, I think, a lot harder to balance around all the cards that are in Standard for 5 years. But that is about Foundations. It's essentially a core set, which is a great concept, which they stopped doing. But it's going to last practically forever. So it does mean we get some good, fun old cards in the Standard now for a long time. And that means Elves are potentially back. And that is mainly down to 2 cards. One is Llanowar Elves. Anyone who knows anything about Magic and anyone who watches any kind of Brawl or Commander content will know Llanowar Elves. It is the original Mana Dork along with Birds of Paradise from Alpha. It's a very simple 1 green for a 1/1 tap to add a green. It is simple, but it is powerful. We don't generally get 1 mana dorks in Standard anymore because they are really, really powerful. The other new old elf is Elvish Archruid, a 3 mana 2/2. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1, but then you can tap the Archdruid to add a green for each elf you control. You have 5 elves, Elvish Archdruid taps for 5. And these are the only 2 new elves in Foundations, but we do have some other ones from previous sets. One of the other powerful ones is Leaf Crown Visionary, a 2 mana 1/1, which again has other elves you control get +1/+1. And it says whenever you cast an elf spell, you may pay a green. If you do, draw a card. It's interesting, this is a cast trigger, not a ETB trigger, which has upsides and downsides. Obviously, if your elf gets countered, you still get a trigger. But if you have ways to get elves onto the battlefield, which we do actually have without casting, you only get the trigger once. But you know, this can buff our entire board and help us draw extra cards. We also have 4 copies of Llanowar Lone Speaker from the same set as Leafcrown Visionary. It's a 2-mana dork that taps to add 1 mana of any colour. It is a 1/3 because tab it calls target land to become a 3/3 with haste until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery, so a way to get in for extra damage. That's not an elf, the land isn't, so it won't get buffed by various creatures. And then one of my favourite cards in the deck, Dwinin's Elite. It's a 2-mana 2/2, but when it enters, if you control another elf, you create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. So a great way to potentially flood our deck, our battlefield with elves, which can be buffed by the Leafcrown Visionary and the Elvish Archruid. This is a card where if we cast it, we get that cast trigger from Leafcrown Visionary, but we don't get to draw an extra card because it creates another elf. We only get 1 of the trigger. And actually, probably the MVP from Duskmourn, Tyvar the Pummeler, 3-mana 3/3. It has tap another untapped creature you control. Tyvar the Pummeler gains indestructible at end of turn and tap it, and then we can pay 5 and creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So by default, this will give every creature +3/+3, but obviously if we have buffed Tyvar through Leafcrown Visionary or Elvish Archdruid, or maybe put a Royal Treatment on it, which creates a Royal Roll, which gives it +1/+1, it will buff our board by even more. And because it's not restricted to sorcery speed, we can attack, wait for blocks, and then just pump and get in for lethal. What's also interesting about that first ability, we see this ability sometimes, like once every few sets, and people often don't quite understand how it works. Tap it is part of the resolution, not part of the cost. So if Tyvar is tapped and attacking, and you have another untapped creature, you can still tap the untapped creature, give Tyvar indestructible, and then tap it, even though it's already tapped. The idea is because it's after the colon, not before the colon, it is not part of the cost. So rounding out the deck, what do we have? 4 copies of Bushwhack. Either search the library for basic land card and reveal it to put into your hand. Great to find extra land drops. Or target creature we control fights target creature you don't control. Most of our creatures are quite small, but obviously Tyvar can get quite big and can crack in and can fight things and give itself indestructible. We also have 4 copies of Royal Treatment. Target creature we control gains hexproof till end of turn. Create a Royal Roll token attached to that creature. The Royal Roll gives creature +1/+1 and has Ward 1. We could go with Snakeskin Veil, which has also been reprinted in Foundations. However, they kind of do the same thing. Snakeskin Veil puts a +1/+1 counter on the creature. This has the token on it, but it also gives Ward 1, so probably works out better, I think. Not the best because of nowhere to run being in standard, just stops hexproof, which is annoying. 1 copy of Patchwork Banner in a tribal deck. I really like this. ETB, choose a creature type. Creatures we control get +1/+1. Then it has to add 1 mana any colour. And then more new cards or reprints. Overrun, 5 mana. Creature you control get +3/+3 and gain trample in a turn. So very similar to Tyvar, apart from Tyvar doesn't give trample. And then 2 copies of Preposterous Proportions, which I have yet to actually cast. It's 7 mana. Creatures we control get +10/+10 and gain Vigilance at end of turn. In previews, a lot of people say this is kind of like a one-sided board wipe because it doesn't give evasion, but obviously your opponent has to jump and it will kill pretty much anything. So, but I've not gone around to casting it. You probably get rid of this, maybe put in another Patchwork Banner or maybe find some other elves. But I did want to cast it, but I've not yet. Land mana base, we only have 22 lands, 17 forests, 3 Cavern of Souls, and 2 3-tree cities. Again, we're a tribal deck. This can tap for quite a lot. Elves back in standard's really, really fun. It does suffer against all kind of removal. All creature decks do. And the problem with Elves is they are small. Leafcrown Visionary being a 2-man, 1/1 for 2 is just rough when it gets cut down. And cut down is still in standard. So it is really fun. It's about a 50-50 win rate. So, you know, take that as you will. Definitely be improvement. I said Preposterous Proportions I put in for a laugh. But never got around to casting it. Overrun is a real finisher though. So I really, really enjoy this. I love tribal decks. I love things like elf decks as well. So really glad elves are potentially back in standard. Well, they are back in standard. They're potentially okay back in standard. I hope you all enjoy this too. If you do, please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the gameplay. Opponent goes first. I would like a 1-drop. That's not a 1-drop. We play out the Loam Speaker because then we can play out the Archruid even without a land. And now we can play out the Archruid even if our Loam Speaker dies, which it obviously is going to. Anoint is an exile trigger. But we are not good at blocking unstoppable slashers. And obviously if they just have the mana in the Bloodletter, well, they don't. Bloodletter's 3 black. I perhaps should have played out Tyvar. But they could just anoint Tyvar. Indestructible doesn't do much. And obviously we are really weak against Archfiend. Going to decline. This is where they anoint our Tyvar. Which they've not done. I expect them to anoint Tyvar, so at least we would have had to make a bad block. Yeah. I mean, it still doesn't look great. We're down to 1. But this may be enough. Yeah. Overrun for the win! If they had anointed Tyvar before attacks, I think people just don't know the card. It's not really widely played, and it's obviously not that old. It's only came in Dustmorn. If they had anointed Tyvar, we would have had to have blocked the slasher with a Visionary or Archdruid, which meant we wouldn't have been able to get him for lethal. Opponent goes first. But we've got an okay hand. We can turn 1 Llanowar Elves, turn 2 Elvish Archruid. Up against green-black. We name Elf. Play out the lone speaker. Just going to turn my volume down a bit. Well, let's play out the Archdruid. And before it grows, let's bushwhack their Scavenger Ooze. Well, I think that card's going to get very, very annoying. Let's play out Tyvar. And I won't attack. Well, let's play out Dwinin's Elite. And let's attack him with Tyvar. I suppose Overrun gives us Trample. This is the new how combat is assigned. They've changed it in Foundations. They're down to 3. But let's just swing in and we can activate Tyvar to give everything +3/+3. And we get it for lethal. Save the melon. We go first with, unfortunately, an unkeepable hand. This is better. And I think we can put land back. Up against Froggies. Or maybe just general good stuff. Play this on Elf. Let's play down Tyvar and play out a Llanowar Elves. That's going to be a problem potentially. Well, let's play the Visionary. And I'm doing this just so I can draw with the Visionary. I'm going to swing him with Tyvar. So what a lot of people don't understand with abilities like Tyvar's is because the tap it is after the colon, not before it, it's not part of the activation cost. Well, let's create 6 green. We will draw and then I'm going to do this now. Just because we had floating mana, I was obviously hoping to draw another elf. But that's a pretty chunky board. And yeah, our opponent scoops it up. They were at 29, so I'm not sure if this attack would have killed him. Let's see if we can do the maths. So we have 18, 25, 32, 41, 49, of which they can block 10, 9, 19. Yes, I think they would have survived. Obviously, their entire board would have been dead. And next turn, we could probably have buffed Tyvar, well, activated Tyvar twice. We could have played like a second Tyvar just to get that draw trigger again. But I think it would be better to use the mana to, well, cause our opponent to concede, basically. Oh, this is better. Let's put a elite to the bottom. Still have yet to see a single royal treatment. Not one. Next turn we can maybe Visionary. And then draw off a second Visionary. And next turn, obviously, we can hopefully just overrun. Yeah, and that should do it. Overrun twice. Hitting for, what's that? 50? Pretty much. 50 trample. Yeah, them tapping out for Convoke was a mistake on their part. our opponent goes first. But we have an okay hand, I think. Would really like one drop Llanowar Elves. But I think we play out the Loam Speaker. Just because it's more likely to survive. The Visionary being a 1-1 is really, really troublesome. So next turn we can Visionary and then Dwinnen's Elite. They're not having the best luck when it comes to Delirium. I will take that. And then let's plough out Dwinnen's Elite. And next turn we can Tyvar and draw with it as well, even without finding another land. They forgot to saddle. They've got a removal spell. It might be Giant Growth. Nah, First Strike's annoying. We will pay. And then we can Bushwhack. They're Wicker Folk. That does turn on Delirium, but obviously I can just block the Patchwork Beastie. And yeah, our opponent scoops it up. We can block the Patchwork Beastie, give our Tyvar indestructible if we need to by tapping our Leaf Crown Visionary. And even though they attack with Fear of Missing Out can only target another creature, not itself. Oh no, it is target creature. I thought it was target other creature. So it could give itself an extra combat step, but it's only hitting us for 2 each time. And we block the Patchwork Beastie. And yeah, next turn, overrun maybe, or just get down a Dwinnen's Elite and Elvish Archruid. Well, this isn't Keeper. This is better, and we'll put back a Bushwhack. But up against Dimir, I don't think our Elves are going to survive. don't need the other land. All the digraph ghouls. Oh, come on. At least next turn we can overrun without tapping down our creatures. That's probably not going to be enough. What we do, we chump one of the ghouls with our 1/1 elf warrior. But this isn't it. Yeah, we're just dead. Our opponent goes first, but we've got an alright hand. Well, there's the royal treatment. On elf. This is a bit of a crap way to do it. But we can take out their commander. Not commander. Lord, basically. Yeah, let's swing in. So you're going to start being able to create cats. I'm not that bothered by that. That was a very, very good draw. We'll take out one of their cats. Second Felidar retreat. Do they have the land? They do not, and they do not have an exile effect for Tyvar, which for 1 mana, there's not a huge amount in standard. Elspeth Smite only does 3 and requires attacking. But next turn we can pump the board by 4 with Tyvar. And yeah, probably just smash him for lethal.